Left of the box. Yesterday was the budget reading. Now, for people who are confused about how the Canadian government works, you're not alone. A lot of people are. So the budget has been proposed and read. It hasn't actually been voted into power yet. So there is a bit of an article on it that I have somewhere where the Conservatives have already said they're going to vote no. Bloc Québécois is going to vote no. So unless the NDP votes for this budget, then that means it won't pass, which means it will trigger an election. So it's really up to the NDP. I don't see them voting no on it because they're getting some tiny crumbs put into it. And I don't think the NDP or the Liberals want an election right now because they know damn well neither of them are getting in. Pierre Poilievre is up in the numbers.
This is where I have to really hope, because I do still have hope that, Jagmeet Singh, for all of his faults, he is A lawyer and B a boxer. So he does know how to fight. And as much as I hate how little this government has done, the NDP's seat total between them and the Liberals is like they're like I don't know, 25 to 100 and something. It's incredibly small. So I want Jagmeet to play chicken as long as he can before they have to get close to triggering an election, because eh, it's Justin Trudeau's to lose at this point if he calls an election. It's over. So Jagmeet has power that he could use really effectively, and this is the make or break moment, because if he doesn't do it well here on a budget is for people, especially vulnerable people like people with disabilities, then it's just almost time to throw in the towel for hoping that the NDP will do anything to have meaningful change.
I'm very disappointed in Jagmeet Singh and everything he's done and hasn't done. All I hope is that he doesn't help to trigger an election right now. And if there is an election soon, Justin Trudeau needs to step down, because a part of the reason why people hate the Liberals are specifically because of him. His image, his face. Like, there needs to be a new leader of the Liberal Party going into the next election if they have any chance of winning. And I only say this because, again, I'd much rather the Liberals in than the Conservatives. I'd much rather neither of those parties in, but, if I have to choose between Liberals and Conservatives, I'd much rather have the Liberals in. Because, at least then I get to keep my face above water while trying to fight the current. And that's, again, it's the hierarchy of needs. If I'm struggling because the Conservative government comes in and every benefit I have gets taken away, and I can't afford anything, and cost of rent goes up, cost of groceries goes up, just skyrockets and all this sort of stuff because of the policies of the Conservative government, I'm in no position to fight back because I'm just too busy trying to survive. And it's like that for me and a lot of people. That's why you don't see a lot of people who live with dire poverty, being activists and out there, because they don't know where their next meal is coming from a lot of the time. And that takes so much mental energy and work. It takes a lot of work to be poor because you're constantly looking for the next way to get food, the next food bank, the next kitchen line that you can get into, hearing opportunities, trying to find a place to stay, trying to keep the place that you stay in. All of this stuff takes so much out of you that you're not able to fight back. So at least with the Liberal government in, I can maintain this. That's it. With the Conservative government in, who knows what would happen.
It's scary because you also have the Conservative Party, their right wing base, the Conservatives are, for those who don't know, actually are only the Conservative Party's only been around since 2003, and if Pierre Poilievre were to become prime minister, he would only be the second conservative prime minister in history, because before the Conservative was Harper, and before that there were two parties. They were the Progressive Conservatives and the Reform Party out of Alberta. The more right-wing part of the Conservative Party has complete control at this point with Pierre Poilievre. He doesn't do the balancing act that Harper did with keeping some of his more radical social conservatives and more angry conservatives placated. Pierre Poilievre coddles to them. I'm actually quite genuinely scared for a majority conservative government with Pierre Poilievre as prime minister,
So am
and
I.
it's very scary.
Yeah, I'm terribly worried about it. I've been predicting it now for years because he plays the populist card, and Justin Trudeau doesn't. Jagmeet Singh doesn't. Like, and to be clear for people, I am not wanting a liberal government. I'd much rather an NDP government. I'd much prefer for Mike Morris to just become dictator of Canada at this point. We'll get into him. He's a Green MP. You know, if he could just take over, I'd be good. I'd be good with that.
I even said the NDP shouldn't run a candidate in his riding.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how much I like Mike Morris.
Yeah.
I don't think the NDP should run a candidate in his riding.
He's been on my channel. I'm in a riding right next to his. So I'm hoping to actually bug him again to get back onto my show. Anyway, yes, I'm biased, but also he rocks. Anyway, so I have linked in the description box below, and I expect everyone to read this and give me a report on it. This is the federal budget proposal here. It's a lot. So I'll just read some of the chapter headings here. So we have more affordable homes. They want to solve the housing crisis. Make it easier to own or rent, and that's part of the Renter Bills of Right that I went over. Then there's lifting up every generation. Yeah, all you Gen Zs who will never be able to buy a home. Well, the millennials who will never be. Basically, if you haven't bought a home yet, you're not going to. Lowering everyday costs. Like they haven't had the ability, like affordable groceries. When you have to put affordable groceries in the federal budget, you've failed. The government is a fail if that has to be in the federal budget to make a note of, oh, we need to make sure that people can eat. Economic growth for every generation. Safer, healthier communities. Just as long as there's not a fourplex in it. A fair future for Indigenous peoples.
He still hasn't lifted all the boiled water advisories.
Yeah, a fair future as opposed to a fair present. Let's maybe fix things in the future, but the things that are happening in Indigenous communities now, the condition on Indigenous communities is absolutely horrendous. Protecting Canadians and defending democracy. Tax fairness for every generation. Details of economic and fiscal projections. Now, I'm expecting everyone in the sandbox right now to be telling me what chapter and annex here that you're going to be giving me a report on by the time I do my next stream. Debt management strategy, legislative measures, statement on gender diversity and inclusion. Oh, gotta throw that in. DEI. It's happening in the federal government. Actually, I'm kind of curious. Go and click on that one. It's 41 pages. I'm not going to read it. I think this is, no, that is just, oh my God, that's just the statement on gender diversity and inclusion is 41 pages. Evolution of gender budgeting in Canada.
I mean, maybe it's a meaningful statement in some way. I don't know. 41 pages is a lot of pages. That's small font.
I'm just, okay, I'm sorry. This kind of got me. A foundational strength of Canada is its diversity. Since 2016 Fall Economic Statement, our government has expressly included gender and diversity in the development of policy, taxation, and resources allocation decisions. The Canadian Gender Budgeting Act, I am reading that right?
Yep.
How do you budget your gender? Which came into effect December 2018, enshrined gender budgeting in legislation. This approach mandated reporting on the gender and diversity impacts of all new budget measures in every budget cycle. Budget 2024 constitutes the 5th annual report. Okay, I think I'm starting to understand what it's meaning now. That they have to see how all of their things will actually impact people based on their gender. It's not.
Which is back to your point of, again, why you prefer to live under liberals than
Mhm,
conservatives. As much as
mhm,
liberals don't always commit to what their promises are, and sometimes half-ass things, a conservative government's not going to do this
mhm.
at all.
Yeah.
So,
I do not exist in the eyes of conservatives, being non-binary. So Canada's gender budgeting approach has yielded significant positive results, continues to evolve, leveraging key strengths and identifying areas where improvements are most needed. Okay, just something about this. So this is released by the Liberal government. So of course they're going to say everything has yielded significant positive results. Like everything has been a win, blah, blah, blah. With the budget out this soon, you can take my analysis of it, even though I haven't read it. We're just reading over some Coles Note versions of it. Don't take to heart anything the liberals say. Don't take to heart anything the conservatives say, because it doesn't matter if there's anything good in there. The conservatives will immediately say it's bad, even if it is objectively good. And the liberals will say everything is objectively good, even when they're not. Like they're just way
Mhm.
too biased in how they present their information that you cannot take on face value anything they say. It's basically you have to wait until Dimensions or Ricochet or The Breach comes out with their analysis of it, which is a more progressive analysis. And I'm not just saying that because I'm progressive and biased that way, but we also have this habit of saying this is good and this is bad. Like we look at each point objectively, and if a liberal does something that's good, we acknowledge it. We don't say it's bad simply for the sake. It's a liberal who said it, and we don't want to agree with the liberals. The Liberal Party and the Conservative Party never do that. Never. They will never objectively look at anything. It will just always be fighting back and forth. And that's why nothing ever gets done, is because it doesn't matter how much it might benefit people, the Conservatives will be against it if the Liberals proposed it.
Yeah, unlike the States, party discipline in Canada is almost like an iron fist. Whereas you'll see Democrats being different Democrats. You got the squad, you got the problem solvers, you got the blue dogs, you got the centrists. In Canada, you have the liberals, because if you're a liberal, you're a liberal. You don't speak out of turn. You follow the party message. You vote with the party. If you step out of line in any way, you're either kicked out or you cross the floor to a different party.
Mm-hmm.
Party discipline in our country is incredibly strict.
Yeah.
So you'll never see a conservative be like, actually, I think that was a good idea by the liberals.
Yeah.
Or you'll never see a liberal be like, you know what, this conservative has a good point. Because they can't, because
Yeah.
then they'd be kicked out.
Well, look at Sarah Jama here. It's provincial, but it's the same type of grip that they have on their parties, where she got kicked
Hmm.
out of the Ontario NDP for saying something about the plight of Palestinians just days after October 7th, without having to state every word with the interphrase of I condemn Hamas, next word, I condemn Hamas, next word, I condemn Hamas. She was calling for a ceasefire, and they kicked her out of the Ontario NDP because she did it before them. I'm actually surprised that Matthew Green is still in the NDP, that they haven't tried to kick him out yet, because he's been very outspoken about certain things. And my money's on him, should there be
I
another
mean, if
election.
he runs for leadership, I could see the party doing well under him.
Yes, I fully support him. And people are like, well, he needs to learn how to speak French. I know he's trying. He let it slip one time on Twitter, mentioning his Duolingo in French. He let it slip that he's trying to learn French. Also, I don't think our prime ministers need to be able to speak English and French. But I just want to quickly go over some of the other things that this has. I'm not going to read the whole article. If people are really interested, you can find it, but I would also wait until The Breach or another progressive magazine comes out with this, because CBC isn't exactly unbiased, and it's not biased towards the Liberal government. It's biased to any corporation, status quo bullshit that's out there.
The Ottawa bubble. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's biased to the Ottawa bubble.
Mm-hmm. Sin taxes? Sorry, I just see who's sinning? Who's taxing the sin? Ottawa unloading unused offices to meet housing targets. One of the biggest pillars in the budget is housing commitments. Before releasing the budget, the government laid out what it's calling Canada's Housing Plan, a pledge to unlock nearly 3.9 million homes by 2031. Unlikely, that that will happen. And of the ones that they do, how many do you think will be affordable to people living with disabilities?
Not any, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm all for converting underused federal offices into homes. Do that. Building homes on Canada Post properties. Do that. Those are things that I can get behind. I'm all for taking things that we already have and refurbishing them into housing, because it takes a lot less energy and work to take like an old factory or old office building and make it into some sort of housing unit. And it happens a lot faster. Taxing vacant land. I can get behind that too, as part of its push on housing. The federal government also says it's looking at a vacant land tax, or vacant land that could be used to build homes. So land that could be used to build homes, if people just sit on it, tax the hell out of it. Same as, people who have empty homes, the empty home tax. Just go nuts with that. Help for students. There's also something in the budget for students hunting for housing. So the federal government is very heavy with the housing in this budget. Like, everything they're talking about has to do with housing in some way or another almost. As with most things from this government, never celebrate anything they do until you see it in practice. There's going to be a carbon rebate for small businesses coming. Yay for them, I guess. The rebates, something that the conservatives don't like to talk about whenever they talk about the carbon tax, and the fact that, people under certain incomes and stuff get rebates, but a lot of them don't realize that because they don't pay their taxes. Darts and vape pods will cost more. Good to know.
I think that's the sin tax you were thinking of.
Yeah, maybe. How are darts sin? Is like this darts like I'm
It's
thinking
like
darts?
vice. I think sin. It's from like the old religious way of looking at vices. It's sinful. So I think
Wow.
that rhetoric is
So they
still
literally did
around.
mean sin. It's not short form for something. They did mean, if you're sinning, we're going to tax you.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That is, oh, if only we could tax the sins of the politicians. Yeah, so darts and vape pods will cost more. Pitching it as a measure to cut the number of people smoking and vaping, the Liberals are promising to raise revenues on tobacco and smoking products. Starting Wednesday, total tobacco excise duty will be $5.49 per carton. The government estimates this could increase federal revenue by $1.36 billion over the 5 years, blah, 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 blah. More money for the CBC, unlike the conservatives who want to just defund it completely. Again, CBC, not necessarily keen on the reporting, but they are neutral in the sense that they're not liberal or conservative. They don't work for a party. They don't even work for the government. They're government funded.
They're government funded, like a nonprofit's government funded.
Yeah.
Where it's arm's length in terms of editorial and control, because it's not even a crown corporation, or it's not. It's like a special kind because it's media, but it's nonpartisan, and that's why the conservatives want to gut it.
Yeah.
Because every other media is owned by either Bell or another corporation, media corporation, or by the Post, which is super conservative.
And I also feel that media should be supported, because when it's supported, it actually has the resources to do investigations, to send reporters places, to get bigger stories out there. Because we're losing a lot of that in independent media, because people can't afford to go to the places. They can't afford to do the investigations. They can't afford if they get lawsuited or something of that sort. So it is important to have like a media company out there that can do all of these things. And so while I disagree a lot with what they do and how they frame things, as long as you know how to read between the lines, you still get information. So they're very biased, but from what I see, their information is accurate. So like when they cover things like what's happening over in Gaza, they'll always talk about it from the Israeli point of view. And they're not lying about what they're saying, but they're just never including the fact that over 34,000 Palestinians have now been killed. So they just neglect to add that.
At this point.
Oh yeah, it's a lot more. Those are like the official numbers, but so many
They haven't
more.
been updated in almost 2 months now, I think.
Boost for Canada's spy agency. Yay. CSIS going to get a little bit more money. That
Raise your
helps.
hand if you actually knew what our spy agency was.
Yeah. CSIS. I talk about CSIS, so people in the sandbox should know what CSIS is.
But do they know the other one?
The other spy agency?
Yeah, the CME.
Shh, 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 shh.
Oh, you're right. I mean, we don't have another one.
No, no,
No.
no. And this will improve people's lives. How? I don't know. And here we have Mike Morris talking about this. And I'm going to see about getting him on my show again.
Hi everyone, Mike Morris here, Member of Parliament for Kitchener Centre. I wanted to share an update with you on the federal budget that came out this afternoon. In short, my concern is it doesn't meet the moment that we are in. It seems like rather than addressing the challenges that folks in our community are facing head on, this is a government that wants to check off boxes. As an example, the disability community has been calling for years for an end to legislated poverty for people with disabilities. I've been amplifying those calls since being elected. For the first time in this budget, we're seeing the Canada Disability Benefit funded. However, it's a maximum being proposed of $200 a month, and it's not going to start till July of next year. It's not good enough. When it comes to the housing crisis that we are in, there are good measures in here to look at using federal land to build housing, to put more incentives in place, although primarily for private sector developers. There is nothing here that would get us to doubling the stock of deeply affordable social housing that we need to get building, whether it's through the Government of Canada directly or through nonprofits in our community like House of Friendship and the Working Centre. When it comes to calls like universal pharmacare, in here we see specific supports for contraceptives and diabetes medication. Good measures to be certain, but it's not universal pharmacare. We need this government to be more bold. They could do it by ensuring the wealthiest Canadians and the largest corporations in the country pay their fair share. As just one example, we've been calling for this government to put in place a windfall profit tax on the excess profits of the oil and gas industry that's been gouging us at the pumps, that's led to their profits of, $38 billion a year in 2022. There's no mention of that in this budget. Nothing when it comes to ending the subsidies to the oil and gas industry that are to the tune of $18 billion a year. Budgets are about priorities. My team and Elizabeth's are going to continue to call for this government to get their priorities straight.
Mike Morris for Prime Minister.
Yeah, like I said, I really don't want the NDP to run a candidate in his riding come next year when the election's called.
I don't think it would be a
That would
problem.
be real solidarity.
Yeah, it would be solidarity. I don't think it would be a problem maybe if they do, because I've covered him before because, again, he's in the riding next to me type thing. He wasn't voted in because he's a Green Party member. He was voted in because he's done the work and the community likes him. So for somebody else to break in through that would be very difficult, even if they were NDP.
But I mean, the tradition is to run a candidate in every riding.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if the NDP actually care about grassroots and care about policy for people and claim to be for people, to get rid of an advocate or even just to run a candidate just as the potential to split the vote between it's not necessary.
Yeah,
and if you really want to show solidarity,
well, what I would like to
that's
see
what I
is
push
that
for.
the progressive members of the NDP and some of the Green Party members decide to, break off and form their own party. And just to show you how childish Pierre Poilievre is about this.
$1 billion orgy of spending by this costly Prime Minister. We know it won't pay. It won't be those with trust funds that protect the $1 billion orgy of spending by this costly Prime Minister.
Yeah. That is his charisma right there, saying $1 billion orgy.
$50 billion orgy of spending by this costly Prime Minister. We know it won't pay.
No cringe. He's got so many people who love him because of the hatred of Trudeau that he represents.
Yeah.
Because he's so smug and arrogant about how much he doesn't like the Liberals. And there's a lot not to like the Liberals for. Mm-hmm. But he represents that arrogance, that smugness, that I know better than you, that so many conservative Canadians have towards people. And they just love it, seeing it in him.